The aim of Black Mental Matters is to tell experiences with honesty. Therefore, some discussions may trigger an adverse reaction. If a discussion is beginning to upset you, we advise that you please stop listening and talk to your support team.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another powerful edition of Black Mental Matters, where we shine a light on the issues, stories, and voices that matter most in our community's mental health journey. I'm your host, Vince the Voice Bailey. Well, today's conversation is one that you know hits my heart. It's healing after grief and trauma. Our guest, Dr. Cynthia Williams, she knows this work firsthand. She's a nationally recognized keynote speaker, grief recovery strategist, conflict resolution specialist, and advocate. She turned the pain of losing her son, Christopher, into a movement for change through her foundation, Love from Afar, and the Parents Against Distracted Driving Initiative. She's authored 3 books, created the Better Healed Than Unhealed workbook, and has received the President's Lifetime Achievement Award, among more than 36 proclamations. In fact, I found her recently at the Rice Awards, and I was so blown away, I had to get her on the horn and get her on this program. Her message is simple yet profound. You're better healed than unhealed. So, Dr. Cynthia Williams, we'd like to welcome you to Black Mental Matters.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. It really is. Thank you, Vince, so much for having me.
Well, it is a pleasure. It is my pleasure. And again, we connected. I like to let folks know, that you're not alone, and the stigma and, losing my dad and my brother. And then when I heard your story, I said, oh, yes, yes, yes. Well, before we dive into your work, let's start with your personal story, Doc, because your journey is why so many people trust your voice in this space.
Absolutely. And I love to share it because my goal is that when I share, somebody understands that they can overcome as well, right? We know our stories are every part of us. It's the whole soul that's in us, but it also is the resolution is what people are yearning for these days, right? You could tell me you did this, or you can tell me you did that. What you do after that, right? How did you overcome that? And so I empower others to know that I teach my clients how to share their story in a matter of minutes, just breaking down their timeline of what we call the timeline of events. I go back to conception, and I know that they come because someone has passed away, but that's just a part of their story, right? I need to know who you were before you had this loss so we can see, how do you manage getting through losses, right? Are you familiar with there is a process? Have you just escaped every other loss prior? Because there's no one on earth that's had one loss, right? Every human walking the earth has losses. They just recognize death as a loss. But we've lost homes, we've lost relationships, we've lost cars, we've lost jobs, we've lost money, we've lost friendships. Everything in the world is about relationships, and I've been able to define that based on my own story. So I was molested at 6 in my own home. Came outside about 14, 15, really outside off the porch, like learning, like I didn't want to be in the house, and I didn't figure out how to be outside the house without my mother at this point, right? You still going outside with your parents at a certain age, right?
That's right.
Or they dropping you off somewhere. But when I first was able to go outside, I got bit by the street bug, and I realized it was venturous out there, right? I saw people, where you get that money from? How come you always got it? How you get a new pair of shoes? Every time I see you, you got new shoes. And my mama making me wait for paychecks 3, right? Like, what y'all doing? And I realized that they were doing illegal things like selling drugs. And I got infected by that. And I found myself being in the midst of street life, very, very dangerous part of the street life. And once I realized that, I knew how to get some money before I knew how to use my body. And so I didn't have sex for the first time till I was 17. And that was when I got pregnant with Christopher. And I didn't really know what it meant to be in a relationship because the only profound relationships I had was my same childhood friend since I was 5. She was a girl. And then my other childhood friend I had since I was 5, who was a boy. Our parents were friends and we were friends. So it was known we was going to be at one of their houses through the weekend. And then I went to a Lutheran school from kindergarten to 8th grade. So by the time I went to a public school at 9th grade, that was 14. I never saw so much. I didn't even know this world existed. We had did the same thing for 12 years in the same building with the same people, same classroom, same teachers. And so when I went to a public school and it was like, all these people in one building,
Yes, yes.
right? Different girls, different boys. What? Right?
Mm,
It was almost like a shock to me because one would call me a green girl.
mm.
And so,
Like you didn't know nothing? Is that what they thought?
yeah, that's what they thought. And I didn't. I was
Yeah.
super green at freshman, but by the time I was a sophomore, it was a wrap. It was over. I got bit. I had Christopher my senior year of high school, and they tried to put me out. It was a school in Wisconsin at the time called Lady Pitts, and they wanted girls to go there who was pregnant. And my mind said, I'm better than that. I ain't doing that. I got all my grades. I feel like y'all punishing me because I made a decision. I knew in that moment that that's when it shifted to who I am today. I began to fight for what I believed in. And I believe that you shouldn't put girls out and outcast them. So you got hundreds of pregnant girls walking around looking at each other like we all made mistakes. We're all shameful. We all humiliated. And I went to the counselor and I added up my credits. I said, how many credits I got to have to graduate? And she told me, and I said, I already got that. I'm going home. I'll just come back
Mhm.
for graduation. So I ended up staying home out of school for 6 months before I graduated. I was supposed to have him a week before graduation and ended up graduating with him big as a house.
Mm,
And I didn't know that that was when my life shifted. When I had that baby is when I became a different person.
yes.
Didn't know that a couple years later I'd be a mother again with my daughter. And then I had a break between like 6 years where my daughter and my third child is 6 years apart. But I'm heavy in the streets then. I'm talking about millionaire drug dealer. Heavy in the streets there. I went from selling a small amount of weed to a whole bunch of cocaine. And so then I had to go to prison. And I spent 15 months in a federal prison. I came home and my grandmother died. That's my dad's mother. 2 months later, my dad died. And 2 years later, Christopher got killed in a car accident. And I realized this is my new normal. I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I've never been the same since I closed the casket.
And hence, here we are today. Well, thank you so much, first of all. Excuse me, doctor, for sharing your personal story. And by sharing, I know someone out there heard it. I mean, I was relating to the stories. There was the drugs in my life, the loss in my life. And, when we talk about, and we talk about it often on this show about healing and that it isn't just personal, it's generational because not only did you go through it, but whole families will go through it. And I think as I learn more about your practice, that's the kind of approach that you bring to your practice. So, the whole thing about grief and grief recovery impacting families and actually whole communities, don't you think?
Absolutely whole communities, because there's no human walking the world without grief. No one's exempt from grief. No one's exempt from trauma. It just becomes your turn, my turn. But when it is our turn, how do we handle it, right? So grief doesn't leave us. We just learn how to manage grief within us. It never goes anywhere.
I actually started this journey. I lost my dad first to suicide and dead, but another thing happened, and it was the Katrina. My family originates from New Orleans, and so my cousins came up and they were telling the stories of what they saw during that time. Bodies floating down the street. You saw the images of people on the rooftops. Hey, save me, come help us. And that was the spark. I mean, of course, my dad, but that was a spark. I said, man, nobody helping these folks who done went through probably the most. I mean, it's like Noah type stuff, biblical. When Katrina hit, no one reached out to these young people to say, hey, are you all right? There's some things you need to process. So, talk about, whole communities. We got a whole lot of folks walking around here I mean, beyond the trauma that we know about, it is really something huge in our community. And so thank God that there are folks who are trying to pull this out and get us to get rid of that stigma, talk about it, and
Yeah.
heal.
You know what's so interesting is I think that people don't recognize just being blended families alone is what we get the trauma from, right? Our parents didn't once know each other. We didn't once know who we had relations with and who we ended up creating families with. We didn't know them. But once we created the children with them, we brought the unresolved grief and trauma just through the DNA. And
Mm,
once we brought that, if we didn't really know who the families were, like we got, even for myself, my children, I have three children's fathers, and my children all grew up in the same home with me and then didn't have these full relational relationships with their siblings in other places. I had to start thinking like, man, we just was hanging out. We ain't even think about the extended family. And anybody in your family got mental health? Anybody got Down syndrome? Anybody got, like, nobody thinks about that when they meet somebody and they look good from the clothes they got on and the shoes they got on and the haircut, and we out having a good time at night. That stuff don't cross your mind. But when your children grow up with unresolved or unconcerned issues that we don't really think was necessary to dive into, you got to deal with that. And that's a whole lot of grief and trauma, because the average family, no race, no age, no gender, has unresolved grief. And you just take it into generation after generation after generation until somebody says it's enough and it stops here.
yes, yes. And that can be, I mean, just that whole process of figuring out. I mean, if you start looking, okay, what did daddy do? What did his daddy do? You know, what took place back down in the South or up in the North or whatever.
Cousins and uncles, you know what I'm
That's
saying?
right.
Yeah.
What's up with why is Uncle Junior always up in the attic and we not supposed to go up there? You know, those kinds of
Exactly.
things.
Or it's
Yeah.
funny. He drunk. Don't worry about it. That's just who he is. Everybody has swept so much under the rug, especially the age that we are. It was a sweep under the rug syndrome forever. And it's almost like I'm proud. I have to say, I'm very proud of the generation that's flourishing now that's saying, yeah, we ain't doing that. We good. And I know I started mine with me and my children. Like, very courageous that my daughter is not a teen parent, right? It's very courageous that I can't control as a human if God is going to give life. But I also was very vocal with, we not having unprotected sex. We not doing that. I can't
So
tell you not to have it.
you after these revelations, that's what I like to call it. You know, I believe in God. He talks to me, you know, sometimes very loudly, and that revelation, comes, and you say, okay, I got to take this advocacy I got in my heart now straight to the streets, straight to the schools. I mean, you even got vans on the move out there. Let's talk about the work that you do now.
Yeah. So now I purposefully go around to different schools, organizations, churches, corporations, colleges, and just share my story. But I leave with everybody getting a tool on how to just define what their grief is first. I can define mine like I just did in a matter of seconds, and that's very minimal. As I've been through so much, I empower others that the quitting is all on me, just like quitting is all on you. But the acceptance to face what I've been through is what has given me the peace that I deserve now. So I could have purposefully quit a long time ago because it's all been too hard to bear. But I realized that selfishly, if I quit, I'm quitting on my other three children. I'm quitting on my family. I'm quitting on my friends. I'm quitting on their families. I'm quitting on people who deserve to know that I made it through, but I'm
Mm,
also still going through.
yes.
And so teaching them that healing is necessary and not avoiding it and not running from it is what I've purposefully went out and done. And I've speak to thousands of people on a regular basis, all over the country, all over the world now, because country US, I speak all over the world. And just empowering people that the longer you let the grief settle into you, the more health issues you're going to incur. And you have to know that people think that these health issues just come out of the way. And they don't, because the brain is only set up to handle the body. The brain is only set up, the majority of the brain covers walking, talking, using the bathroom. 75% of the brain is just that. All it does is make sure you can talk, walk, and use the bathroom. The other, like minor, about 15-20% is reading, writing, math, goals, values, right? And so the brain don't have a lot of space to hold on to your past.
Mm,
Your thoughts give yourself the headache. The
mm.
brain just saying, I mean, what you want me to make your elbow hurt? I can make the weakest link hurt because you still gonna go to the bathroom if your elbow hurt, right? Or yeah, why my knee hurt, right? My knee hurt, right? The brain is saying, some gonna give if you need me to keep focusing on Uncle Robbie. Like some, you gotta get some gonna give. I don't know what it's gonna be. It could be your back, right? But your thoughts will derive anxiety and depression, and that will focus on the heart. And then these things get
Blood
stuck in
pressure,
you like
heart disease.
cancer, and yeah,
Wow.
all that from unforgiveness because it's just been too long, and you got to release that. It happened. It won't happen again. And as long as you hold on to it, is as long as your body is going to suffer from it.
There was a book I had read or a statement somewhere that talked about, for us humans, when there is a traumatic incident in our lives, when we think about it, it's like living it over and over and over and over again. You get the same fear. Your heart starts beating the same way it did when it happened for the first time. As opposed to say that's how the story went, that if a deer was drinking some water and a lion comes up and the deer runs away, he gets away, it was all frantic for a minute. But then after he get away, he like, hey, keep it moving. Us,
Yeah.
we start thinking about that lion and get just, we wake up in the middle of the night. Oh my God. And like you say, that stress, it just builds up and up and up, letting it go. But, you talk to a lot of people in your practice. It's not easy to let it go. It's not easy.
No, because people want to prove their point. And so I do a whole lot of grief, but I do way more conflict resolution and childhood trauma work
Mm,
because a lot of people are just trying to, like I always say, piss test with one another. I got to be right. He can't be wrong. I got to be wrong. I got to be. So the fight is always to be the person to one up the other person. When y'all all lose, when the family ain't together, right? And those that are watching you all fight for so long, those who really loses. And so we can't even create that when it comes to death. That's just you saying, I'm mad that my loved one is gone. I ain't forgiving God for that. And then
mm,
when you think about relations that are still open, no one's died, like marriages and relational girlfriends and boyfriends and sibling rivalry, all of this stuff is proving a point to be the person that's right. And there is no right or wrong in relationships. There's a view, there's a vision, and there's a way. Y'all either gonna be on the same page or you ain't. And you're gonna love each other if they wrong or not. That you're gonna love each other if you don't see eye to eye or not. That's what love really is. But when you start treating each other like enemies and strangers, where did the love go?
mm. You've
And I
written,
teach a lot of that. Where did
yeah.
love go?
Not only did you teach it, you wrote it in some books. You
Yeah,
talk about the childhood trauma after my daddy left. One of your publications was "What's in your lemonade?" I always talk about, because that simple saying, "Making lemons out of lemonade." What's in your lemonade? Concrete soil.
soil.
Yeah, soil, memoir of grief, books, and what made you want to put it down on paper? You've already said it. You're out there teaching it, but you say you got to put it down on paper as well.
Couldn't be everywhere. They were pulling me in all kind of places where I was like, could you speak here? Could you speak here? Could you speak there? And I love it, right? I do. I love to share my story. I love to help people free themselves. But I was thinking, then what? And I would be at huge places. Like I was on stage with Les Brown and he was like, what's your back table? I'm like, what's a back table? You gotta have a back table. But I was already writing books, but I just was, send them to get them. And I realized people want autograph copies. That's cool. But the story, oftentimes you can't get all of my story when I'm on the stage. So I realized they needed to know the ins and out of what I really went through and what I really overcame so they can find themselves just as measurable to me, despite degrees and all. None of that matters to me. We all got stories and we all got purpose. What did God said you were supposed to do? What you supposed to do every day when you get up that you know is for his people? not just for myself. And so I needed to share the story. And then I had people who heard the story, the other couple of books, I turned them into journals. So I give a piece of my story. Now you tell me how you relate that and write it in this book. Use them all you need to. Get some more paper. Keep going. Keep going. You know what I mean? So it's just empowering people that when you hear us speak, they're only giving you a synopsis, but they need to hear when you cried at night for 2 days and you couldn't get up and get in the shower and you wanted to sleep at the graveyard with your baby and you couldn't eat and you lost weight and your blood pressure went up and down and anxiety attacked you and depression stood on you and you looked like you had been on drugs and alcohol, but you just was grieving. They needed to hear that part from me. They needed to hear that I lost my son and pulled the plug a day before my birthday and I don't celebrate birthdays no more. Like, they need to hear that part. They needed to hear that I don't do holidays because it's not going to be the same. My parents, grandparents all deceased and I lost a son. I don't care about no Christmas trees and hot chocolates and pajamas. Christmas over with. Like, that's just not what we doing. I'm not going to put myself into what family is when family ain't.
And I got to say that does not, as you said about being right and, making that decision, that does not mean that your days are not as fulfilling as everyone else's. In fact, I dare to say your day are really fulfilling because it feels to me, just from talking to you, you're fulfilling that purpose 24/7, 7 days a week. And it's nothing better. I mean, you sleep so good at night because you done put everything you got inside out into the world. Nobody can take that away.
Right. And I just learned how to keep my sanity, though, Vince. It's more than anything else was learning how to keep my sanity. And that's what I teach people, right? If I came to your house and you said, oh, we got some strawberry Kool-Aid and I hate it, I ain't drinking it because that's all you got, right? I'm just not selling. I'm just not, because I know it's going to affect my sanity. And when you start bartering with yourself about yourself, you start realizing I'm just constantly in a fight with myself. That's crazy. I ain't gonna keep fighting myself because I'm grieving. I'm gonna learn how to grieve, live in the new normal, and find myself preparing for the next loss. Because we know if you ain't dead, they ain't stopping coming.
So you provide counseling services for individuals. I see you have some group sessions and things like that. What especially in these days, what are some of the most common things that people come to you about?
Like I said, I think the biggest thing that people are coming to me these days is just understanding how to maintain a relationship. We know how to get them, but we don't know how to retain them. And because the pain in them represents pain from previous ones, we'll run out. And we got to learn how to be in relationships. People don't know how to be in them because of their parenting. The average person, about 84% of people grew up in single family homes. So they were averagely pulled and tug of war between the two families, right? And so the wives and the girlfriends and the baby mamas and what they want to call them, which I hate that term, the children's mothers play checkers. They didn't play chess, and they put the child as the pawn. And it's like 365 days out the year. And you equate it to going to court, letting the judge tell you your children's father could see the child every other week. We round about 52 days in a year. And you thought that equated to some money, but you stressed, your blood pressure up. You really ain't got no money because they ain't really got no money to give you. And all because y'all both jointly decided to have sex. You got the kid thinking, I'm supposed to do the same thing. So now the child take their children's father to court. We just keeping the cycle going instead of saying, how can we remain a family? How can we maintain these relationships so that the child in the relationships breaks both of our curses? What can we do? So the majority of the people come for death. Man, I deal with so much childhood trauma and conflict resolution. I do mediation. When I say every day I'm mediating something because people think I'm grown. That's a whole big term. I'm grown. But you don't know how to be literate in your finances, be literate in your relationships, be literate in your maturity level, be literate in your morals and values. Everything out the window, and I'm grown pops up when somebody asks you why you did something. So you got to shift. And you got to learn how to teach people to a different perspective that we're mediating the same things over and over again because somebody don't want to listen.
Wow,
Somebody
Doc.
want to just keep talking about how grown they are, but
I agree.
forgetting grown people got to be mature,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
You dropping nuggets, Doc. One of the sayings that I attribute to you, I read or heard, broken crayon, still color.
Yes.
I love that.
Yes. Yes.
A
Because,
broken crayon, still
would
color.
you agree we broken? Like even yourself, right? But are you getting up every day, moving, doing what you got to do? And if you remember as a little kid, because I do, this what made me come up with the concept. When I was a little kid, I would be going into it, getting into it. Because I actually still color with my clients. I do a lot of art therapy. But I would color, and then you got to peel the paper back because you just like, oh, and they only give you one color in the box. So if you really got a big page, it's wise to get a couple boxes of the crayons so you can keep coloring. Meaning, if you flip that into our world as people, you can't do this by yourself. We are broken. But if you want to finish the coloring page, which is what life is, you got to keep coloring. And you might have to get a few more crayons to help you finish your page and your project.
I love it. I know that people that want to at least explore more about Dr. Cynthia Williams, you have various programs going on. So let's talk about, okay, so you have the foundation for your son,
Mm-hmm.
Christopher Williams Foundation. And
Yes.
briefly tell me about that.
So the Christopher Williams Foundation hosts summits throughout the year. We do focusing on distracted driving, safety, and mental health for students. We're going to be partnering with Midnight Basketball. So we're going to be doing mental health summits, mock car crashes, mock funeral, mock trial, teaching the safety about these car crashes, but it also talking about your decision making and what's making them pull the trigger so much, right? I picked up boxing lately because I realized I can take my frustration out. And so I do a mental health summit on Monday evenings, every other Monday at the boxing gym. Like, let's see if the boys can come fight somehow. Let's try not to,
Okay.
and then once we done boxing, we talk about mental health. So that's what the foundation does. And it's been very, very profound because we get to come in one place, a bunch of parents who's lost our children to car crashes, drug overdoses, suicide, gun violence. We just come in one place and share our stories with the community.
Okay. Love from afar. That is the practice.
Yeah. So Love from Afar, the grief recovery agency, is the practice. That's when I actually deal with clients, group, individual, conflict resolution, mediation, and mental health services. 12-week program. You get a manual, and we just teach people how to help yourself with these lifelong tools. You can pick these up. If you did services with me now, you can pick these up 5 years from now and do your work again. These are lifelong tools that you could utilize because everything's based on how you maintain your sanity through your relationships.
Wow. Doc, I want you, time goes by fast, and that tells me that it's good. I want you to take, if you can, 15 seconds, someone out there that's listening right now that's struggling. I don't know what that struggle is, but let's say that it is dealing with some grief, some unresolved childhood trauma. Give them a word, Doc.
Absolutely. I just want to share that in this moment, in this chaotic world that we're in, you have to know that you were placed here by way of your parents to be great. You're placed here to be special for those you're attached to and those that you deal with every day. I challenge each and every person under the sound of my voice to know that you are better healed than unhealed. So if you've been struggling with being a better person just from everything you've been through, I challenge you to find someone that you can talk to on a regular basis to get the things outside of your body, from your head, out your mouth, either on paper, video record yourself, put it on your notes, tell Siri, I don't care what you do, get
Mm,
it out your head so you don't lose your mind, and find you somebody you can talk to that will help you, give you the proper tools to keep it out of your mind once you get out. You are better healed than unhealed, and I challenge everyone to get therapy. It's the best thing you could do for yourself.
wow. Well, family, you heard it here today. Broken crayon, still color. And we may still all carry cracks, pain, and grief, But as Dr. Cynthia Williams reminds us, you are better healed than unhealed. Love it. Her story is proof that even in our darkest valleys, there's a way forward. So if you're struggling, don't go it alone. Tap to resources like the Better Healed Than Unhealed workbook, the support, love from afar, or connect with her directly. You can learn more at lovefromafar.org and drcdub.com, drcdub.com. If you want to stand against distracted driving, check out Parents Against Distracted Driving and spread the word, because one decision behind the wheel can change a family forever. Dr. Williams, thank you so much for your courage, your heart, and your leadership. To all of you listening, remember, healing is not a luxury, it's a necessity. I'm Vince the Voice Bailey, and as always, stay strong, stay encouraged, and keep making mental health matter. We'll see you next time.